The question I get asked more than any other is simple. What camera should I buy? I've been using the Lumix L10 for the past few weeks, and I think I finally have an answer, because this might actually be the easiest camera I've ever recommended. But there's one thing I wasn't expecting. Not the autofocus, not the image quality, not even the fact that it doesn't have stabilization. It was something completely different. The problem is what cameras are becoming. For years we've watched cameras get smarter, better autofocus, better subject detection, better video, better everything. And now they are starting to remove some of the creative decisions from photography too. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is something I think we should be talking about, because the Lumix L10 isn't just another camera, it's a glimpse into where photography might be heading. And I'm still not sure how I feel about that. If I'm honest, I thought I knew exactly what this camera was going to be. A glorified point and shoot. Something fun for a few days, but not something I generally enjoy using. I couldn't have been more wrong, because after a surprisingly short time, I stopped thinking of it as a compact camera. It just felt like a Lumix. The menus are familiar, the controls are familiar, and switching between this and my S1 II felt completely natural. It felt like a camera I already knew how to use. I knew where everything was and how I wanted it to work. But straight out the box, there were two things that drove me slightly mad. The first was moving the autofocus point while using the viewfinder with the LCD screen closed. Unlike other Lumix cameras with EVF, there's no joystick here. By default, you have to open the screen just to move the focus point, which rather defeats the purpose of using the viewfinder. Thankfully, the fix is super easy. I reassigned the right button on the rear wheel to focus area set, and suddenly everything works exactly the way I wanted. The second thing was the function ring on the lens. By default, it changes the aspect ratio. The problem is that, unlike other Lumix cameras, it permanently crops the RAW files. That's not something I'd ever want to do by accident. So I changed it to switch between human and animal subject detection instead. For me, that's a much better use of it and much quicker than opening the menu every time. Those are small things, but they're exactly the sort of things you only discover after actually living with a camera. Once I made those changes, everything just clicked. And that's when I realized that it wasn't a glorifying point and shoot at all. It was a proper Lumix that just happened to fit in a much smaller body. And then I looked at the photos. And that's when this camera really surprised me. I expected good photos. I didn't expect them to feel so Lumix. The colors, the dynamic range, the flexibility of the RAW files, everything felt familiar. At no point did I find myself wishing I brought my S1 II instead. And that's probably the biggest compliment I can give this camera. Yes, it's smaller. Yes, it has fewer buttons. Yes, there are compromises, but the photographs never felt like one of them. There's something else I noticed. After a while, I stopped thinking about what camera I was using. I just started looking for what to photograph. I found myself taking it everywhere, walking around Warsaw, grabbing a coffee, sitting in a restaurant, wandering the streets. These are all moments where I'd normally just reach for my phone. Instead, I'd grab L10 from my bag. It became the camera I always had with me. And because of that, I came home with photographs I probably wouldn't have taken otherwise. And I think that's exactly what a camera should do. And looking through these photographs afterwards, I realized something else. None of them are technically extraordinary moments. They're just small things I noticed while walking around. A reflection in a window, somebody crossing the street, an interesting face, a color, or a detail I might normally have ignored. But that's what I enjoyed about using this camera. It made me slow down and pay more attention to what was happening around me. And looking back now, I think that's what I'll remember most about using this camera. The built-in 24 to 70mm equivalent lens was another surprise. Normally a built-in zoom is the first compromise. Here it never felt like one. 1 minute I'd be shooting a wide street scene, a moment later I'd zoom in on interesting detail, then I'd flick to macro switch and photograph something from just a few centimeters away. It never felt limiting. It felt like the camera was ready for whatever caught my eye next. It was just easy to use and fun to shoot with. One of the biggest talking points of the Lumix L10 is the little button, the load button. And I have to admit, it's a brilliant idea. If you never used loads before, you can think of them as presets for your photos or videos. You can load your own or somebody else's, and your JPEGs come straight at the camera looking exactly the way you want them, or exactly the way somebody else wanted them to look. And that's what got me thinking. Photography for me has never been just about taking the picture. I enjoy the whole process, choosing the aperture, changing the shutter speed, tweaking the exposure, trying different compositions, then getting home, opening the raw files and editing them. Sometimes changing my mind halfway through the edit and starting again. That's all part of photography for me. It's how a photograph becomes mine. And that's probably why I don't see editing as a chore. I see it as a part of the creative process. Now, I completely understand why people would love the look button. Not everyone enjoys editing. Not everyone wants to edit their photos afterwards. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But personally, I still enjoy making those decisions myself. In fact, I enjoyed it so much that I reprogrammed that button, the LUT button, almost immediately. Mine now switches between different autofocus modes instead. For the way I shoot, that's simply more useful and more practical to have in this place. And I think that's actually the beauty of this camera. It lets you work the way you want to work, whether that's beautifully finished JPEG straight out of the camera or raw files that you can shape into something that's completely your own. So, who is this camera actually for? Well, I think there's three types of people who are going to absolutely love it. The first is someone buying their first proper camera. This isn't a camera you'll outgrow in 6 months. It gives you room to learn. It's the sort of camera that grows with you instead of holding you back. And if one day you decide to move up to something like S5 II or S1 II, you already feel at home. The second person is someone like me, someone who already owns a larger Lumix camera but doesn't always want to carry it. There are days when I simply don't want a backpack full of gear. I just want to pick up a camera and go, and that's exactly where this camera makes sense. This is exactly that camera. It will probably become the camera you actually take with you. And the best camera is the one you have with you. The third person is someone who wants finished photographs straight out of the camera. I still can't quite get my head around that way of shooting, but I think those people gonna absolutely love this camera. And that's why I opened this video the way I did, because I genuinely think this is one of the easiest cameras I've ever recommended. Not because it's perfect, but because it can be as simple or as serious as you want it to be. Before I finish, there's one last thing I'd like to say. This wasn't the easiest video for me to make, not because of the camera itself, but because I wanted to make absolutely sure I was being fair. That's why I spent as much time with it as I did before actually talking about it. And after the last few weeks, I generally think this is a very special camera. More importantly, it has reminded me why I love photography in the first place. Not because it's perfect, but because every time I picked it up, I wanted to go out and make photographs, not just take them. And honestly, I can't ask for much more from a camera than that. Whatever camera you choose, just make sure photographs still feel like yours. Go and be creative. And this is it from me. I hope this video was in some way at least entertaining. If it was, give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. But before you go, YouTube has got this algorithm which predicts, it knows which video you should watch next. And this is it. Check it out.